where I'd like to start is anybody heard of the Book of the Dead? Yes? From The Mummy, maybe? The movie? Yeah? I know you all have seen The Mummy. Okay, the Book of the Dead is a book that the ancient Egyptians wrote in regards to their life and death. They wanted to lead a very spiritual life so that they could have everything in a very beautiful state of mind. Their heart was very important. We all have a heart, and to them they believed that their spirit lied inside of their heart, so they held their heart very dear. Here is a person that just passed away. Now this is a person that is helping them through this tough time, like a brother or a sister or a servant. And God Anubis, god of the underworld, he's the jackal-headed god. He takes your heart that they leave inside the mummy and he weighs it up against the feather of truth and justice from goddess Mot, the goddess of truth and justice. They're trying to find the truth in this heart to see if this person was a pure person, if he was good or bad in his life. And from these people up here, these are 12 gods and goddesses, they're asking this person, did you ever kill? Did you ever steal? But things that we may take for granted, like did you ever take advantage of a poor person, or did you ever make anybody cry? From that, God Anubis sees if your heart is heavy or light. In this case, this person was a good person, so his heart is lighter than the feather. And here God Thoth, he was the inventor of the hieroglyphics, the writing that they used, and he was god of math, science, and everything intellectual and smart. Here is Amut. Amut is part crocodile, lion, and hippopotamus. If your heart were too heavy and you were not a very good person in your time, he would eat your heart and you will not be able to go on into eternal life. Their eternal life was like their kind of heaven, only it was another kind of earth. You still had services to do in your heaven. Of course, you cannot go by yourself. You have to go with God Horus. He is son of Father Osiris. And here he's enjoying his eternal life with his 4 canopic jars, which the organs go inside of, and lotus flowers, a sign of peace, abundance, and prosperity. Now, this is something that all ancient Egyptians based their life on. Every day was another day that they got to live, but another day that they didn't die. People died very, very young, around 17 years old, 18 years old in those times. Like King Tut, I'm sure people have heard of King Tut. He died when he was 17, but he became king when he was around your age, 8 or 9, around that time. So he was very young, and his father, his name was Akhenaton. Akhenaton changed believing into many, many gods into just believing into one god. Now that changed everything because the ancient Egyptians always believed in many, many gods. But since Akhenaton changed it to only one god, a lot of temples and a lot of even the pyramids, they kind of went out of business because nobody was praying at the temples anymore. So eventually they ended up killing him because they wanted to believe in their many gods, and King Tut became king. Now, anybody hear of Cleopatra? Yes? The little girls, Cleopatra, she invented all the moisturizers and lotions and makeup that we wear today, eyeliner, foundation, powders. She was very intelligent, and this is a painting of her. Now, she knew 7 different languages, and she was the first form of a femme fatale. Now, any man that would meet her would eventually end up dying, and this was like almost like a curse that they said followed her. But nonetheless, she was very beautiful inside and very spiritual, and she was very loved because she was the first Greek queen. She was not Egyptian, she was Greek, to learn the Egyptian language. All the other Cleopatras before her didn't want to learn the Egyptian language, but she wanted to. She knew 7 different languages. So, let's see, where else? There was a king, or a pharaoh, named Shepsu. Now, Shepsi wanted to build these needles. Like, they're about 210 feet high, and they're inscribed with hieroglyphics. They write right here all of the accomplishments of the pharaoh, what they did, how many kids they had, and how many battles they won. Now, Shrepsi was the first one to say, I want these needles in honor of who's ever in rule. Shrepsi was a woman, but they didn't let women rule Egypt at that time. So she had to disguise and dress up like a man for 6 years. She fooled Egypt for 6 years with a fake beard and fake a wardrobe as a man. And in those 6 years, there was no war. Everybody loved each other, and nobody fought over anything, and everybody worked together. But mostly important, there were no battles and there were no war for those 6 years that Shrepsi was pharaoh. Now, this is Bastet. Bastet is goddess of love, music, and joy. She is protector of all mother and children. And the interesting thing about cats is in ancient Egypt, they would love their cats just as much as we love ours today. Only a little bit more, they would actually mummify their cats and keep them with them when they were to leave too, because the cats were the protector of the family. They would warn them if there were cobras coming in or if there was anybody coming in at night. This lady with wings, her name is Isis. Now, Isis was the major goddess. She was a mother creation goddess. Now, the reason she has wings is because this is Osiris. This is her brother and her husband. At that time, they married their brother or their sister to keep the bloodline pure. Now, Isis grew wings on a day where she found out her husband was murdered by her brother, Seth. He was the evil one, and Osiris was the good one. So the evil one is naturally going to kill the good one. She grew wings to collect the pieces of Osiris that he had threw down the delta of the River Nile, and she was a very powerful magician. Now, because she was a very powerful magician, she was able to resurrect Osiris, meaning bringing back to life. She collected all of the pieces, and there was one piece that she wasn't able to find, but she was still able to bring them back. Now, every time she found a piece, she built a temple so that people would remember where Osiris's one remain was. Now, she brought him back to life and had a son with no physical contact. Horus was born. Now, Horus was kept in her care until he was a grown man and then let out into battle. And she told him, this is what Seth did, go avenge the death. And he did, and in the process, he lost his left eye. Now, he went into battle, he lost his left eye. He came back and brought it to god Thoth. He was a healer, a very big magician as well. And he said, I lost my eye, can you please fix it? And he fixed it for him so that he can see again, but also so that he can have magical powers in his eye. So he was able to heal with his eye. He found out that people were starting to get better when they were around his eye. And from that point on, even still in Egypt, they have the eye everywhere for protection and for healing against evil spirits. Now, this is a scarab. Scarabs are beetles. And the reason that they loved the scarab so much is that they believed that they represented eternal life. And every time they were in the desert, they saw these beetles coming from the sand, from everywhere. And they wondered where they were coming from, but they were always there. So one day, I guess, they started to look at them, and they found out that the beetles at night put their head underneath the sand, lay their eggs, and when the sun comes up, they start to hatch, and there's beetles coming from everywhere. So since they were always around, they figured it was eternal life, and that was the symbol. Don't believe the mummy. They don't really eat you. They're for very good luck, actually. They still use the symbol in a blue ceramic form. So they're for good luck. Nefertiti was King Tut's stepmother. Now, her name was, it meant the beautiful one. Now, because of that, she had a beautiful head. In those times, they would wrap their heads so that it would almost look like a cone coming back. And that was a very beautiful thing to them. And she had her big blue crown and a very long neck. Now, Egypt is in a part of Africa, and in those parts at that time, the long neck and the cone head was a very beautiful thing. The longer your neck was, the more royalty you were, and also your head was like that as well. It was a sign of beauty. So, and Nefertiti was married to Akhenaten, the one that changed everything, to polytheism, and that means believing in many different gods. Right here are the pyramids. Now we have 3. Now these are the pyramids of Giza, and the reason there are 3 is because they were built by Tohotomos. Tohotomos was the first, and he built the first pyramid. Now his son built the second pyramid, but they kept building them bigger and bigger. Now the mysteries of these pyramids are that they're incredible mazes, and the hieroglyphics, which is the writing on the walls, mean many different things. And there's a lot of mysteries to these and the way they were built. And actually, the pyramids are known to be not even just as a pyramid, but they're supposed to look like this, like a diamond. Like there's another pyramid underneath the sand, and those are the underground temples. And the same thing with the Sphinx. The Sphinx has 2 major temples underneath its paws, and we're still not able to get underneath them because we don't know how to get there, but we know that they are there, and it's just a matter of stone walls and trapdoors and really cool things like that, and getting through mummies and temples to get inside. The Sphinx was built by Kheopfri. Kheopfri was the head on top of the lion. Now, it was said that the lion was built way longer before ancient Egypt. Now, this was 5,000–6,000 years ago, a long, long time ago. And Kheopfri built his head on top of the lion, but the lion's body is a lot bigger than the head and also a lot older. So they think that the lion was already there before the ancient Egyptians got there, and they just added on. So that's one of the biggest mysteries of the Sphinx right now. But there's a lot of temples underneath the Sphinx that we've learned so much from. There's a temple called the Temple of Dandora. Now, on the ceiling of that temple is a woman who's holding the sky, and her name is Nut. She's goddess of the sky, and she holds the universe with her body. And you can see stars on her stomach, and she's supposed to nurture us as the world. Her and God Ra. God Ra is the sun god, but he is the one that created all of the earth according to ancient mythology. The ancient Egyptians believed that God Ra was the one who would just think of something and it would appear. And the more he thought up, the more would come. So the world can become more beautiful. So he thought up of all these gods to take care of the different parts. He had Sobek. Sobek was the crocodile god. He had a crocodile head. He was the god of the Nile, the River Nile. The River Nile was very important to them. It gave them all the agriculture, water, and anything that they needed. The papyrus, this is what the painting is on. This grows on the delta of the River Nile, and it only grows in Egypt. And the way that they used to make